Good morning, my friends. Today I thought I would talk about my Jisei, my death poem for 2024. I posted the poem last year, but I didn't really explain what it was or why I was writing one, so I thought I would make a video kind of explaining why I and many other Zen practitioners write Jisei every year, and how I go about writing it, and break down some of the symbolism and meaning, because it's a little obscure, and talk about how it works. So New Year's celebration is coming up, and at many Zen temples across the world and at many Zen centers in the United States, we have a New Year's celebration. Ocean Gate is no different. So on New Year's Eve, what we're going to do is we're going to do 30 minutes of Zazen, seated meditation, and then we're going to have a fire ceremony. So in the outdoors, of course, we have a fire pit, and we have a well-being altar where we can write cards for people who are in hard times, and those can be individuals we know, or those can be people in the Gaza and Ukraine conflict, and Syria and other places, or people in natural disasters. And so we write little cards, and every Friday during the well-being service, the names on all the cards are chanted. And also we have cards for people who have passed on. And every year, we burn all of the cards that are left over from the year before, because it's disrespectful to just like throw them in the garbage, and you can't keep them forever or you'd be overflowing. And so there's something about kind of cremating the cards and having those good intentions that we've invoked all year kind of dissipate into the universe along with the smoke. We also we use lavender chip incense, and again, it's kind of disrespectful to throw that away, so we keep the used lavender buds, and so we burn that as well. And so part of the New Year's ceremony, in addition to the meditation, is the fire ceremony, where we chant and we read out the names of everybody on the cards before we burn them for the new year. And then there's also the ringing of 108 bells, and this is the 108 represents the 108 worldly passions in kind of Japanese Shinto Buddhist folklore. And so we ring the 108 bells to release those as well. And depending on how many members show up, we divide the 108 out as equally as we can. So everyone will get a chance to hit the big bell, and depending on how many people show up, they'll hit it some amount of times. It's actually my job to do the division and find out how many times each person should ring the bell. And then if there is a remainder, the two teachers, the two head priests at the temple will kind of do the extra. So if, for example, we get 15 show up, I think everybody hits the bell 7 times, and then there's a remainder, and so the teachers will hit that. And so after we sit Zazen, we do the fire ceremony, and we ring the bells, there is kind of a semi-formal tea time. And in that time, people are invited to read their Jisei. And Jisei are short, usually short, poems to express one's understanding. And as the old year rolls into the new year, this is considered an appropriate time. And there's kind of the superstition that if you pass away before the new year, this is your understanding, right? And so the point of a Jisei for a Zen practitioner is to express some kind of feeling or understanding. And so I write Jisei every year. I tend to prefer haiku format in the 575 syllable format. And the way I try to write my Jisei is a little bit like how a samurai would write. And so it's usually a one-shot thing. I do little to no editing. I really want to sit down and express my understanding as purely through the pen as I can, without a lot of rational, critical thinking brain. I'm trying to kind of record the feeling that is evoked in my body, and that's how I tend to write them. So I wrote mine in about 2 minutes yesterday. I sat down and said, it's time to write this poem. And so I thought I would share it with you, and then rather than just post the poem, I thought I would kind of explain a little bit, although understanding that the feeling that I'm trying to evoke is what came out from me, and then the explanation is kind of a rationalization after the fact. So here is the poem. Moon reflects the pond. Why speak of broken water? Life spills out like snow. That's the whole thing. Moon reflects the pond. Why speak of broken water? Life spills out like snow. And so there's a certain feeling that I was trying to capture, that was in me, that I was trying to express on the page. And then if we break this down a little bit, some of this is wordplay and kind of riffing and responding to kind of earlier teachings. So there's a particular quote that I quite like from Dogen that was kind of evoked in this. And so I'm going to read you the quote from Dogen because I think it'll inform the poem a little bit. So, realization doesn't destroy the individual any more than the reflection of the moon breaks a drop of water. A drop of water can reflect the whole sky. So this is Dogen. It's a very well-known and common quote in Zen Buddhism. And so it's helpful to remember that the moon very often is used to represent enlightenment, right? Realized nature. And so what Dogen is saying, he's saying that the realization doesn't break the individual any more than the reflection of the moon breaks the drop of water. I think sometimes people are concerned that their personality or their individuality will be annihilated with a direct experience of emptiness, of inherent existence, of this kind of oneness of the universe. And Dogen is saying no, the particularity is part of Buddha nature of the universe, is part of the functioning. So your individuality is not destroyed with a realization experience. And this is important because otherwise it can feel very scary and like annihilation. And I really like this because this is very much my experience, is that the reflection of the moon in the drop of water doesn't harm the water. And yet what appears in the water is the moon. But I wanted to flip it a little bit because the realization and the individual are not actually separate. And so saying my realization, my enlightenment makes no sense. And so if really realization and individuality form an emptiness are not separate, if they are two aspects of the same thing. And if you remember back to my video on the two truth doctrine, right, that there's conventional reality and ultimate reality, and then there's kind of that third level, which is realizing they're not different. If the individual can reflect realization, then realization reflects the individual. And so that's why I said the moon reflects the pond rather than the pond reflecting the moon. Because in a way, saying that a drop is not broken implies that there is an individual here and realization over here, and they're separate. And the realization happens to the drop, which is not complete, at least. And so I wanted to express that realization reflects the individual as much as the individual reflects the realization. And then why speak of broken water? Because again, if the moon is reflecting the pond, if realization and individuality, if form and emptiness are the same, why would you talk about one breaking the other? And really there's no drop to be broken, because all things are an aspect of the universe. So there is a drop, but there also is no drop of water, right? And so that's kind of where I was coming from, right? That the moon reflects the water rather than the other way around. So there's no point in talking about water being broken. And then life spills out like snow. This was something I actually had to think quite a bit about how to explain, because the initial feeling was like an avalanche, like if you have like snow in a container, you open it up and it like pours out, right? Life spills out, life bursts out. And then I started thinking about mountains and how when there's snow on the mountains, it changes the entire aspect of the mountain. And yet in a way the snow makes the mountain, but the mountain was there. It's just a snowy mountain. And so life takes on all these different forms. And then I finally started thinking about, and this is my favorite, snowflakes. I think we're all pretty familiar with the idea of the wave, right? Individuals are a wave, and when the wave crashes on the shore, it flows back out. And so the wave was never separate from the ocean. It was just a way for the water to be. I've talked about this before. But if you think about snowflakes, this is an even more ephemeral way to think about the same thing. You have the snow, but within the snow is each individual snowflake. And these snowflakes come down, and they're beautiful, and they're delicate, and they're very ephemeral, and they land, and they pack down, and eventually they melt, but they're never destroyed. They just go back into this cycle of life, of snow, of planet, of this water cycle, right? And so it's interesting how our perspective can go from snowflake to snow to storm to blizzard to mountain, even though there's snow on top of it. It's all about perspective, but life is always happening. And so these snowflakes that are so beautiful and so ephemeral and so individual are a functioning of this whole cycle, much the way that the waves in the ocean are, but it feels even more like tenuous in a way. And when you're thinking about kind of a death poem, that to me felt particularly beautiful. And so when I brought all of these feelings together, we get this poem that I'm gonna read to you one last time. Moon reflects the pond, why speak of broken water, life spills out like snow. And so on New Year's Eve, I will sit with the people at the temple. We will do the fire ceremony. We will ring the bells, and I will read this poem. And I hope that people at the Zendo enjoy it. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed writing it and then kind of thinking about it, how to express what was in my body after the fact.